The Shadow of the Flower of Destiny. Chapter 1. Everyone said that Lin Yunqiu had a face that could raise any eye, like a finely carved portrait, with bright big eyes that could see through people's hearts, and a slight smile on the corner of his mouth, which was both soft and resolute. She stood at the door of the house, holding the engagement gift sent by the eldest young master of the Liu family, a gilded ring with dark blue gemstones inlaid on it, like a glimmer of light in the night sky. The neighbors whispered, "Yunqiu, what a blessing. Marry into the Liu family, you don't have to worry about life." The corners of Lin Yunqiu's mouth barely rose, but his heart stung like a knife. No one saw the path she had traveled in her life. Her father was in prison, her mother remarried, and her family was in debt. She smiled and said it was okay. In fact, every salary was proof that she gritted her teeth and survived life. That night, she lay on her bed in a humble rented house, holding the ring repeatedly in her hand and staring at the crack in the ceiling. Marrying into the Liu family. Will there really be good days? She asked herself in a low voice. Her heart was like a river full of pebbles, gushing endlessly, but with nowhere to talk. Chapter 2. The Liu family's mansion is brightly lit. Lin Yunqiu stood at the door in a dress, feeling both apprehensive and helpless. Liu Shaochen came over, his eyes were deep, and he raised his eyebrows slightly. "Yunqiu, are you sure you want to marry me?" Lin Yunqiu pursed his lips and nodded, a hint of stubbornness flashed in his eyes. I'm sure." But Liu Shaochen looked at her expression and seemed to be able to feel the secret in her heart, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. "Very good, from today onwards, you will be a member of the Liu family." At the banquet, relatives raised their glasses to congratulate each other and laughed. But Lin Yunqiu knew that real life was far more complicated than this gorgeous light. She lowered her head slightly, rubbed her fingers against the ring, and secretly reminded herself, even if she marries into a wealthy family, it does not mean that life will be smooth. She must be strong. Chapter 3. On the first morning after marrying into the Liu family, Lin Yunqiu walked into the dressing room, faced the mirror, and saw the delicate silhouette of his face illuminated by lights, and suddenly felt strange. Luxurious rooms, expensive cosmetics, exquisite beds. These pictures, which only existed in her dreams in the past, are now truly in front of her. However, when she opened the dressing table drawer, she saw a letter, her father's handwritten letter, the handwriting shaking slightly, revealing anxiety and helplessness. "Yunqiu, no matter what, remember that you have to live stronger than fate." Lin Yunqiu held the letter, tears slipping down unconsciously. She took a deep breath and looked up at the window, the morning light shining into the room, as if reminding her, no matter whether it is a wealthy family or a low-class family, life still needs to be determined by oneself, and fate will not be easily pitied. Chapter 4. The days after marrying into the Liu family were not as comfortable and happy as the outside world imagined. The Liu family's internal undercurrents were turbulent, and all matters were strictly arranged by the housekeeper, and even Lin Yunqiu's itinerary was carefully planned. The first time he attended the Liu family meeting, Lin Yunqiu sat at a long table in a noble dress, surrounded by relatives with sharp eyes and different expressions. She listened in a low voice and found that under the superficially peaceful atmosphere, there was an open and secret struggle. She thought to herself, this is not a fairy tale world, but a vast ocean of undercurrents. However, she also understands that if she wants to survive in this environment, she must learn to observe words and expressions, respond wisely, and even use her weak appearance to hide her inner steely will. Chapter 5. Late one night, Lin Yunqiu was walking alone in the garden. The moonlight was like water, and the fragrance of flowers wafted away. She suddenly saw a black shadow flashing. It was Liu Shaochen. "Yunqiu, you. Are you okay?" His voice was low and concerned, but his gaze was unfathomable. Lin Yunqiu smiled reluctantly. I'm used to it." Liu Shaochen was silent for a moment, then put his hand on her shoulder and said softly, "No matter what, I will be by your side." Lin Yunqiu looked up at his silhouette under the moonlight, and his heart moved slightly. But she knew that the world of wealthy families was never simple, and she had to be stronger and smarter than anyone else to not be knocked down on this path. That night, she made a wish under the moonlight. Even if life goes against the current, she must live her own way. Chapter 6. As soon as Lin Yunchu adapted to the life of the Lu family, he found that every smile and every greeting here had a calculation of pros and cons. Housekeeper Shen Xian observed her silently and reminded in a low voice, "Miss Yunchu, this place is not as simple as it seems." Lin Yunchu nodded, but secretly thought in his heart, "Since life gives me steel, then I will use my wisdom to forge my own armor." That night, she flipped through the family history materials in her study and found that there had been decades of grievances and entanglements between the various branches of the Lu family, and even involved the struggle between commercial interests and social circles. She was surprised by the huge power structure behind the family and understood that if she was not careful, she might be drawn into the bottomless abyss. She looked up at the night sky outside the window, the moonlight shone through the window lattice, and secretly told herself, no matter what, she must live stronger than fate. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 7. The next day, Lin Yunchu was arranged to attend the Lu family banquet, during which wealthy people from all walks of life gathered. She wore an elegant dress and a smile, but her heart was like a mirror observing everyone's eyes and expressions. Lu Xiaochen sat next to her and whispered, "The smile at a banquet is often the most dangerous." Sure enough, there was a relative at the banquet who casually mentioned her father's imprisonment in an attempt to embarrass her. Lin Yunchu smiled faintly and raised his glass in return, but skillfully resolved the embarrassment in his words, leaving the other party speechless. The side husband was beside him, his eyes flashing, "Yunchu, you. Stronger than I imagined." Lin Yunchu whispered, "This is not about being strong, but about survival." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 8. After the dinner, Lin Yunchu returned to the room and received an anonymous letter. The letter read, "Be careful of the undercurrents within the Lu family, trust should not be given easily." She looked at the letter, frowned slightly, and understood in her heart, the life of a wealthy family is far more complicated than she imagined. She no longer just relies on her appearance, but needs wisdom, courage, and the ability to read people's hearts. That night, she studied family documents and financial structure at her desk, gently rubbing the ring with her fingers, silently telling herself, no matter how bad fate is, you must control it. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 9. The next day, Lin Yunchu was arranged to visit Lujia Enterprise. She observed every detail in the office building and accidentally discovered that a middle-level executive was secretly manipulating capital changes, which seemed to involve a competition for interests within the family. Her heart moved, and she decided to investigate secretly. She skillfully uses her gentleness and kindness to obtain information without arousing any suspicion. The side husband secretly reminded, "Miss, if these things are slightly wrong, the consequences may be serious." Lin Yunchu smiled, his eyes shining with perseverance. "I understand, but if I don't try, how can I know my boundaries?" Underscore 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 un. Chapter 10. At dusk, Lin Yunchu was walking in the garden of the mansion and encountered an injured little civet cat with a fur as dark as the night sky, and pain flashing in his eyes. She squatted down and comforted softly, "Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you." The civet shook slightly, but felt her kindness and slowly approached and asked her to bandage the wound. At this moment, she understood that even if life is full of intrigues and challenges, there is always something worth protecting. She smiled, watched the little civet lick her hand, and secretly vowed in her heart, no matter how sinister the wealthy family is, she will go on with wisdom and kindness. Chapter 11. Early the next morning, Lin Yunchu got up early and quietly slipped into the Lu family's study, wanting to find out the clues of the changes in funds within the Lu family's company. The study room has a calm atmosphere, and the sunlight shines through the gaps in the curtains on the wooden bookshelves, reflecting a faint light and shadow. She flipped through the account book and found that the numbers in a report were abnormal, and her heart moved slightly. There may be an undercurrent of family power struggle hidden behind this anomaly. She slowly raised her head, looked at the tall courtyard trees outside the window, and silently thought to herself, wealthy families are never simple, I must be more cautious than them. The side husband suddenly appeared at the door and whispered, "Miss, be careful of being discovered." Lin Yunchu smiled, his eyes calm, "Don't worry, I'll just take a look first and make the most basic preparations." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 12. In the afternoon, Lin Yunzhe was arranged to accompany Liu Shaochen to a business banquet. During the banquet, all kinds of powerful people gathered, but there was a hidden calculation between the laughter. Lin Yunzhe sat quietly aside, observing everyone's expressions, tones, and subtle body movements. A senior businessman tried to provoke Liu Shaochen, hinting that Lin Yunzhe had a poor background and wanted her to embarrass herself in front of everyone. Lin Yunzhe smiled faintly, raised his glass in return, and cleverly changed the topic, leaving the other party speechless. Liu Shaochen looked at her with surprise and a hint of appreciation in his eyes. Yunshu, you are calmer than I thought. Lin Yunzhe smiled secretly in his heart. This is just the wisdom of survival, not the superficial scenery. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 13. After the banquet, Lin Yunzhe returned to the room and received a strange courier. Inside was a small antique box with a crimson crystal ball hidden inside. She held the crystal ball and instantly felt a warm and strange force flowing into her body, and her heart trembled slightly. The crystal ball seemed to sense her emotions, shimmering with her breathing. The side husband asked curiously, "Miss, what is that?" Lin Yunzhe whispered, "I don't know, but I feel it will help me." She carefully placed the crystal ball on the desk, secretly deciding in her heart that exploring the secrets behind this power might add an advantage to herself in the struggle for wealth. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 14. The next day, Lin Yunzhe began to try to establish contact with the crystal ball. She lightly placed her palm on it and felt the energy inside the crystal flow like a tiny ripple. As she focused, her state of mind gradually resonated with the frequency of the crystal, and she could feel the faint movement inside and outside the mansion in the distance. She was surprised and excited, thinking to herself, this is not just an ornament, it's like a tool that can see through the world. Seeing her engrossed, the husband couldn't help but remind, "Miss, be careful not to be bitten back by the energy." Lin Yunzhe pursed his lips and nodded, his eyes shining with perseverance. "I understand, I have to learn to control it." From that moment on, the crystal ball became an important assistant in her exploration, prediction, and response to conspiracies in the wealthy family, and also became her secret source of power. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 15. At night, Lin Yunzhe was walking in the courtyard. The moonlight was like water, the breeze was blowing, and the crystal ball flickered slightly in the palm of his hand. The side husband followed silently, feeling the perseverance and calmness exuding from her. Suddenly, there was a slight sound of footsteps in the courtyard, and shadows flashed by. Lin Yunzhe's heart moved, and the crystal ball flashed brightly, hinting her direction. She silently adjusted her breathing and slowly approached, only to find that it was a masked man who was peeking into the secrets of the mansion. She smiled, her tone soft but coercive, "If you have bad intentions, you won't be able to leave tonight." The masked man was terrified, and before he could react, he was locked by the crystal ball in her hand and could not move at all. The side husband stood beside him, with admiration and surprise in his eyes. "Miss, can you even control this situation?" Lin Yunzhe whispered, "The state of mind determines everything, even if there is danger, you can deal with it calmly." This night, she once again understood, no matter how glamorous the wealthy world is, it is also full of undercurrents, and only wisdom and courage can control their own destiny in the headwind. Chapter 16. Lin Yunzhe was in the study of the mansion, carefully studying the reaction of the crystal ball. Whenever there is an incident in the mansion, the crystal ball will flicker slightly, as if to hint at her danger or secret location. The side husband reminded, "Miss, be careful not to rely too much on it." Lin Yunzhe smiled, but his eyes were as deep as autumn water. This is not dependence, but an insight. Just as she was concentrating on observing, the crystal ball suddenly flashed unusually brightly, and a strange aura came to her face. She followed her induction and found that the entrance to the secret room in the basement of the mansion was hidden behind a false wall. Lin Yunzhe's heart was slightly shocked. The world of wealthy families is glamorous on the surface, but secretly there are countless secrets and conspiracies. She took a deep breath and decided to explore this underground secret room, perhaps uncovering the deeper secrets of the Liu family. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 17. At night, Lin Yunzhe brought the crystal ball to the entrance of the underground secret room. The heavy wooden door was covered in dust and exuded an ancient atmosphere. She gently pushed away and stepped into it. The secret room was poorly furnished, but it was surrounded by ancient scrolls, and many old documents were stacked in the corners. The shimmering light of the crystal ball illuminates every corner, seemingly guiding her forward. She carefully flipped through the scrolls and found that the Lu family's early family struggles for power, secret transactions, and hidden business methods were more complex than outside rumors. The side husband reminded in a low voice, "Miss, be careful, if this information is discovered, the consequences may be serious." Lin Yunxia smiled and silently thought in his heart, "Since fate has tested me, I will be stronger than anyone else." Chapter 18. The next day, Lin Yunxia organized some of the information into notes and secretly observed the distribution of power within the Lu family. She found that although Lu Xiaochen had loyal subordinates around her, there were still relatives who secretly coveted power and even wanted to use her to achieve their goals. She secretly calculated in her heart, she can't show any emotions, and she must use wisdom to control the situation. So, she began to deliberately show weakness on the surface, but secretly arranged the situation behind the scenes, using small means to test all forces. During dinner, a relative tried to provoke her relationship with Lu Xiaochen, suggesting that she was just an outsider and should not interfere in family affairs. Lin Yunxia responded with a smile, skillfully resolving the embarrassment, and even making the other party respectful. The side husband secretly admired, "Miss, your wisdom. It's smarter than I imagined." Lin Yunxia whispered, "This is just the wisdom of survival, wealthy families are never as simple as they seem." Chapter 19. After Lin Yunxia gradually grasped the undercurrent of the family, he began to use the power of the crystal ball to monitor changes inside and outside the mansion. The crystal ball not only senses danger, but also slightly affects the flow of energy, allowing her to detect hostility at critical moments. Late one night, she noticed abnormal movement in the back garden of the mansion. Quietly moving forward, she saw a masked man trying to steal the scroll from the secret room. Lin Yunxia's heart froze, the crystal ball in her hand flashed with a glimmer of light, she injected her inner calmness and vigilance into the ball, and the light instantly locked the masked man, making the other party unable to move. The side husband exclaimed, "Miss, can you even control this situation?" Lin Yunxia smiled faintly, his eyes were resolute, "The state of mind determines everything, even if there is danger, you can deal with it calmly." Chapter 20. After this incident, Lin Yunxia's reputation quietly spread in the mansion. Relatives from all sides began to look at her differently, not only afraid of her wisdom, but also difficult to guess her gentle attitude. At night, Lin Yunxia stood in front of the window, looking at the quiet figures of the spirit beasts in the courtyard, holding a crystal ball in his hand, and secretly told himself, no matter how sinister the wealthy family is, she must use wisdom, kindness, and perseverance to find her own way. The side husband stood behind him and whispered, "Miss, your determination. Better than anyone else." Lin Yunxia smiled, the moonlight shining on her face, reflecting a soft but firm light, "Although this road is difficult, I will go on, not for anyone, only for myself." Chapter 21. Lin Yunxia walked quietly through the corridor in the mansion, holding a crystal ball in his hand. The light shone on her face, reflecting a hint of perseverance. Recently, she discovered that the undercurrents within the Lu family were more complex than she imagined, and some relatives had even begun to secretly plan plans that were unfavorable to Lu Xiaochen. The husband quietly reminded, "Miss, you have become more and more cautious recently, but being too careful can also make people suspicious." Lin Yunxia smiled slightly, and his eyes flashed with determination, "If I don't be so careful, this wealthy family will devour me." She secretly observed the actions of each relative and found that several of them deliberately approached her, trying to obtain information about her relationship with Lu Xiaochen. Lin Yunxia decided to use wisdom and gentleness to resolve the danger, not only to expose himself, but also to protect himself and the order of the mansion. Chapter 22. On the day of the dinner, Lin Yunxia wore an elegant dress and walked into the hall. She had a faint smile on her face, but her eyes were full of insight. During the banquet, a relative tried to secretly provoke her, implying that her past was not worthy of entering the Lu family. Lin Yunxia cleverly changed the subject and smiled at him in a gentle tone, leaving the other party speechless. Her demeanor not only protected herself, but also made others present respect her. Lu Xiaochen whispered in her ear, "Yunshu, you know how to deal with complex situations better than I imagined. Lin Yunzhi smiled faintly and thought to himself, this is just the wisdom of survival, but it is just the basic rule of wealthy life. Chapter 23. After the banquet, Lin Yunzhi quietly returned to the room to study the energy reaction of the crystal ball. The crystal ball seemed to be able to sense subtle changes in the interior of the mansion, and even presented a miniature illusion in front of her, recreating the scene of the underground secret room. She was surprised. This is not only a strange accessory, but also a tool that can predict danger. She decided to focus more on mastering this power and using it as her secret weapon to survive in the wealthy family. The husband observed her behavior and whispered, "Miss, your caution and insight has surpassed ordinary people." Lin Yunzhi nodded slightly, silently telling himself in his heart, even if fate is difficult, we must grasp the situation step by step. Chapter 24. Early the next morning, Lin Yunzhi was walking in the garden and noticed a civet cat trapped in the flowers, his eyes full of horror. She crouched down and called softly, carefully rescuing it. The civet felt her kindness, his body gradually relaxed, and trust flashed in his eyes. Lin Yunzhi smiled slightly in her heart. Even a small life can reflect the softness and perseverance in her heart. The side husband looked at her and whispered, "Miss, how are you feeling? It can really affect everything around you." Lin Yunzhi looked up at the courtyard. The moonlight was shining, and she secretly made a vow in her heart, no matter how sinister the wealthy family is, she must use wisdom and kindness to find her own path. Chapter 25. In the evening, Lin Yunzhi studied the family's internal documents in the study, and the crystal ball glowed slightly, prompting her that there was a change in her mansion. She quietly followed the crystal ball's guidance and found that a relative was trying to sneak into the underground secret room. Lin Yunzhi calmed down and used the light of the crystal ball and his own state of mind to quietly control the situation, causing the other party to fall into a temporary stalemate and unable to act. She stepped forward, her tone soft but coercive, "If you have a bad heart, even if you get close, you won't be able to touch the true secret." The masked relatives were frightened and could only quietly withdraw. The side husband secretly admired, "Miss, your wisdom and state of mind. It is deadlier than any force." Lin Yunzhi smiled faintly, his eyes flashing with perseverance. In this wealthy world, only wisdom and calmness can truly control destiny. Chapter 26. After a few days of observation and covert actions, Lin Yunzhi gradually grasped the power vein inside the mansion. She began to use the crystal ball to sense movements everywhere and predict the intentions of her relatives. Every flicker of light is a hint, a signal that can defuse danger in advance. The side husband reminded, "Miss, is it too risky for you to rely too much on the crystal ball like this?" Lin Yunzhi smiled, his eyes shining with perseverance. "This is not dependence, but observation. No matter how dangerous the environment is, you must first see the situation clearly before taking action." She secretly sorted out the information and marked the potential crises one by one. She secretly told herself, this is not just a battle for wealthy families, but also a test of survival, and she must be more sensitive and cautious than anyone else. Chapter 27. One night, a sudden power outage occurred in the mansion, and the entire mansion fell into darkness. Lin Yunzhi held a crystal ball in his hand, and the shimmering light illuminated the surroundings, and he found that someone was trying to sneak into the underground secret room. She whispered to her husband, "This time, the danger is right in front of us." The two quietly tracked, and Lin Yunzhi used the light of the crystal ball to form a miniature protection and successfully locked the intruder. The man was panicked and couldn't break free, so he could only be captured. Lin Yunzhi smiled slightly in his heart, the greater the danger, the more he can hone his wisdom and state of mind. She stood in the dark, the moonlight intertwined with the crystal ball, reflecting a resolute and calm face. Chapter 28. The next day, Lin Yunzhi returned to the study and began to sort out the scrolls and documents in the underground secret room. She discovered that the Liu family's secret transactions in the early years were much more complex than outside rumors, and some even involved commercial fraud and power struggles. She whispered to herself, a wealthy family, glamorous on the surface, but secretly full of dangers. The side husband looked at her with respect in his eyes. Miss, you can calmly deal with so many sinister situations. Lin Yunjie nodded slightly, secretly telling herself, no matter how difficult the road ahead is, she must remain calm and take every initiative. Chapter 29. In the evening, Lin Yunjie walked into the back garden of the mansion with a crystal ball and found an injured civet curled up in the flowers with fear in his eyes. She crouched down, called softly, reached out to pick it up, and carefully handled the wound. The civet felt her kindness and slowly approached, her eyes shining with trust. Lin Yunjie smiled slightly in his heart. Even if the wealthy world is full of conspiracies, there are existentials worth protecting and cherishing. The side husband whispered beside him, Miss, your state of mind. It can really affect everything around you. Lin Yunjie looked up at the night sky, the glimmer of light shone down, and secretly made a vow in her heart, no matter how dangerous the wealthy family is, she must use wisdom and kindness to walk out of her own path. Chapter 30. At night, Lin Yunjie was in the study, and the crystal ball glowed slightly, indicating that there was another change in the mansion. She quietly follows the light and finds a masked relative attempting to steal the scrolls from the underground chamber. Lin Yunjie calmed down, holding the crystal ball in his hand, and the shimmering light emitted, forming a miniature protective field that made the masked relatives unable to move. She stepped forward, her tone soft but coercive, if you have bad intentions, you won't be able to touch the true secret even if you get close. The side husband whispered admiration, Miss, your wisdom. It is deadlier than any force. Lin Yunjie smiled, his eyes shining with perseverance. In this wealthy world, only wisdom and calmness can truly control fate. Chapter 31. Lin Yunjie discovered that some relatives of the Liu family had begun to secretly plan to use her past to interfere with Liu Shaoqin's decision-making. She understands that wisdom and the power of the crystal ball alone are not enough, and she must be more proactive in grasping the situation. She quietly arranged for the servants in the mansion to cover her whereabouts, while using the crystal ball to predict possible dangers in advance. Every action was carefully calculated, and even her husband had to admire her calmness and sensitivity. In the dead of night, Lin Yunjie stood on the garden corridor, watching the moonlight shine on the shadows of the trees in the courtyard, and secretly told himself, although the wealthy are dangerous, as long as you walk calmly and wisely, you can gain a foothold in the undercurrent. Chapter 32. The next day, a family meeting is held in the mansion. Lin Yunjie maintained a soft smile on the surface, but inside he was like a tight string, focusing on every detail. She observes the gaze and gestures of her relatives, analyzes the possible intentions behind each sentence. A relative tried to secretly provoke her relationship with Liu Shaoqian, with thorny words, trying to make her lose her temper. Lin Yunjie smiled faintly and responded cleverly, neither angering the other party nor making the people present look at her with admiration. Liu Shaoqian whispered, Yunxu, your calmness and wisdom. It's better than I expected. Lin Yunjie nodded lightly, thinking to himself, this is just a way to survive, wealthy families are never glamorous on the surface. Chapter 33. In the afternoon, Lin Yunjie noticed that the glimmer of the crystal ball flickered abnormally frequently, which seemed to indicate that someone was secretly acting in the mansion. She followed the light and quietly discovered that a masked relative was trying to steal the scroll from the underground secret room. Lin Yunjie calmed down, and the crystal ball in his hand flashed with a shimmering light, forming a miniature protective field, making it impossible for the opponent to break free. She stepped forward lightly, her tone soft but coercive, if you have a bad heart, you won't be able to touch the true secret even if you get close. The masked relatives were frightened and could only quietly withdraw. The side husband whispered admiration, Miss, your wisdom. It is deadlier than any force. Lin Yunjie smiled, his eyes shining with perseverance. Wisdom and calmness are the only weapons to survive in this wealthy world. Chapter 34. At night, Lin Yunjie sorted out the secret room scrolls in the study of the mansion, and the crystal ball glowed slightly, guiding her to explore deeper secrets. She discovered that there had been an undisclosed business transaction within the Liu family, involving huge capital flows and involving the interests of many relatives. Lin Yunji's heart was slightly shocked. Wealthy families are not only glamorous on the surface, but also have complex and sinister undercurrents. She decided to use her wisdom to control information, understand hostility and conspiracy first, and secretly arrange preventive measures. The side husband whispered, "Miss, your calculations and insights has surpassed ordinary people." Lin Yunji smiled faintly, his eyes flashing with determination. "This is the way to survive. Only by taking the initiative can we be invincible. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 35. Early the next morning, Lin Yunju interacted with the civet in the garden of the mansion. The civet had completely trusted her, her eyes flashing with tenderness and dependence. She reached out and stroked its fur, feeling the peace of mind. The side husband looked at her and whispered, "Miss, how are you feeling? It can really affect everything around you." Lin Yunju looked up at the courtyard, shimmering light, and secretly made a vow in her heart. No matter how dangerous the wealthy family is, she must use wisdom, kindness, and perseverance to find her own way. That night, the crystal ball flashes again, prompting a new danger in her mansion. Lin Yunji's heart moved. She held the crystal ball tightly, and silently told herself, no matter how sinister the future is, she will control her destiny with wisdom and calmness. Chapter 36. Lin Yunji discovered that some relatives in the mansion had begun to join forces to put pressure on Liu Shaochen in an attempt to manipulate family decision-making. She understands that wisdom and the power of the crystal ball alone are not enough, and she must take control of the situation more proactively. She quietly arranged for her husband and some servants to secretly observe the every move of these relatives, and used a crystal ball to detect abnormalities in advance. Every glimmer of light was a signal that she was in control of the situation in advance. In the dead of night, Lin Yunji stood on the garden corridor, watching the moonlight fall on the shadows of the trees in the courtyard, and secretly told himself, although the wealthy are dangerous, as long as they walk calmly and wisely, they can gain a foothold in the undercurrent. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 37. One day, while Lin Yunji was sorting through the scrolls of the underground secret room in his study, he found a valuable ancient manuscript that recorded the Liu family's undisclosed business and power struggles in the past. Her heart was slightly shocked. The wealthy family is not only glamorous on the surface, but also has intricate undercurrents. She decided to use her wisdom to control the information, understand the hostility and conspiracy first, and secretly arrange preventive measures. The side husband whispered beside him, "Miss, your insight has surpassed ordinary people." Lin Yunji smiled faintly, his eyes flashing with determination. "This is the way to survive. Only by taking the initiative can we be invincible." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 38. At night, Lin Yunji once again took the crystal ball to inspect the mansion, and the shimmering light flickered in the corridor. She noticed unusual activity near the underground chamber, and a masked relative attempted to sneak in. Lin Yunji held the crystal ball in his hand, and the shimmering light illuminated the surroundings, forming a miniature protective field that made the opponent unable to move. She stepped forward calmly, her tone soft but coercive. "If you have bad intentions, even if you get close, you won't be able to touch the real secret." The masked relatives were frightened and could only quietly withdraw. The side husband whispered admiration, "Miss, your wisdom. It is deadlier than any force." Lin Yunji smiled, his eyes shining with perseverance. Wisdom and calmness are the only weapons to survive in this wealthy world. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 39. The next day, Lin Yunji began to take the initiative to contact other relatives in the mansion, being soft and kind on the surface, secretly testing their intentions. She found that some of them were obedient on the surface but actually had bad intentions. She secretly calculated in her heart, using kindness and wisdom to resolve potential crises, while secretly collecting information and grasping the direction of power within the family. Every smile, every word, is part of the strategy. The side husband whispered, "Miss, every step you take. It's like playing chess." Lin Yunji smiled lightly, his eyes resolute. "That's right, a wealthy family is a game of chess. Only by mastering the overall situation can we not be restrained." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 40. At night, Lin Yunzhi was walking in the courtyard, and the crystal ball flashed in the palm of her hand, reminding her that there was a new change in her mansion. She followed the light and found a relative trying to steal the underground secret scrolls, skillfully and clearly planned in advance. Lin Yunzhi calmed down, the crystal ball in his hand flashed light, forming a miniature protection, making the opponent unable to move. She stepped forward, her tone soft but coercive, "This is not a place where you can break in at will." The other party retreated in fright, unable to resist. The side husband whispered admiration, "Miss, you have mastered the whole situation." Lin Yunzhi smiled, his eyes shining with wisdom. In this wealthy world, only calmness and wisdom can truly control fate. Chapter 41. Lin Yunzhi noticed that the atmosphere in the mansion was extremely tense, and some relatives were kind on the surface, but in fact they were secretly competing. She decided to observe first, remain calm, and use the crystal ball to sense abnormal energy and find the source of potential threats. The side husband reminded, "Miss, will you be too tired if you are vigilant for such a long time?" Lin Yunzhi smiled faintly, his eyes firm, "So what if you are tired? Only by knowing every step can we survive in the wealthy family." She secretly sorted out the information within the family and marked the potential dangers. "Every time I think, it's like laying out an invisible chess game. Every smile and every word of a wealthy family may contain traps, and she must be more cautious than anyone else." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 42. That night, a dinner party was held at the mansion, and Lin Yunzhi wore an elegant dress with a smile on his face, but he silently calculated the intentions of each relative in his heart. During the banquet, a relative hinted that she was not worthy of entering the Lu family, and his words were prickly, wanting her to be embarrassed. Lin Yunzhi's face was calm, he cleverly changed the topic, and even used humor to resolve the embarrassment, so that the other party could no longer provoke trouble. Her demeanor surprised and respected the people present, and the side husband whispered, "Miss, you can even use words as weapons." Liu Shaochen said softly, "Yunshu, you are calmer and wiser than I imagined." Lin Yunzhi smiled secretly in his heart, this is just a way to survive, and every step of the wealthy needs to be cautious. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 43. After the banquet, Lin Yunzhi returned to the study and began to study the new reaction of the crystal ball. It seems to be able to capture movements further away, even presenting miniature illusions that recreate the secrets hidden within the mansion. She was slightly surprised, this crystal ball is not just an observation tool, but more like a sword that can predict danger in advance. She decided to focus more on mastering this power as her secret weapon for survival in the wealthy family. The side husband whispered, "Miss, your calmness and wisdom has surpassed ordinary people." Lin Yunzhi nodded slightly, his eyes resolute, "Even if the fate is difficult, we must control the situation step by step." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 44. The next day, Lin Yunzhi interacted with the civet in the courtyard, which had completely trusted her, and her eyes flashed with gentleness. She caressed its fur, feeling a sense of peace and comfort in her heart. The side husband whispered beside him, "Miss, your state of mind. It can really affect everything around you." Lin Yunzhi looked up at the night sky, the shimmering light shone down, and secretly made a vow in her heart, no matter how dangerous the wealthy family is, she must use wisdom, kindness and perseverance to find her own path. At night, the crystal ball flashes again, indicating that there may be new dangers within the mansion. Lin Yunzhi held the crystal ball tightly and silently told herself in her heart, no matter how sinister the future is, she will control her destiny with wisdom and calmness. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 45. Lin Yunzhi began to take the initiative to communicate with relatives in the mansion, being gentle and kind on the surface, but in fact observing every micro-expression and verbal detail. She found that some of them were obedient on the surface, but in fact they had bad intentions. She uses kindness and wisdom to resolve potential crises, secretly collect information, and grasp the direction of power within the family. Every smile, every word, is part of the strategy. The side husband whispered, "Miss, every step you take. It's like playing chess." Lin Yunzhi smiled lightly, his eyes resolute, "That's right, a wealthy family is a game of chess, only by mastering the overall situation can we not be restrained." Chapter 46. Lin Yunzhi discovered that some relatives in the mansion had begun to blatantly plan against Liu Shaochen, intending to seize control of the family. She understands that this struggle for wealth will determine her survival and dignity. She quietly uses the crystal ball to sense everyone's movements, and at the same time arranges for her husband to secretly guard key scrolls and important documents. Every flash of light is a warning and a signal of action. At night, Lin Yunxia stood on the courtyard corridor, watching the moonlight fall among the flowers and shadows, secretly telling herself, no matter how dangerous the situation is, she must control the overall situation with calmness and wisdom, and not give any enemy a chance. Chapter 47. On the night of the wealthy dinner, Lin Yunxia was wearing a plain and elegant dress, his demeanor was calm, and his smile was full of insight into everything. During the banquet, a relative tried to take the opportunity to provoke her relationship with Liu Xiaochen, with thorny words in her words, intending to make her lose her temper. Lin Yunxia remained calm and cleverly resolved, and his humorous response left the provocateur speechless, and the atmosphere at the scene immediately eased. Her demeanor made everyone respect, and even Liu Xiaochen couldn't help but secretly admire it. Liu Xiaochen whispered, Yunxu, you are calmer and wiser than I imagined. Lin Yunxia smiled slightly, thinking to himself, this is just the way to survive, and every step of the wealthy requires caution and wisdom. Chapter 48. After the banquet, Lin Yunxia returned to the study and began to sort out the scrolls and documents in the underground secret room. The crystal ball flickered, as if guiding her to find deeper secrets. She discovered that the Liu family's previous business transactions involved huge capital flows, involving the interests of many relatives, and some people even tried to use her to manipulate the situation. Lin Yunxia calmly analyzed and decided to counteract with wisdom and strategy. The side husband whispered beside him, Miss, your insight has surpassed ordinary people. Lin Yunxia's eyes were resolute. Wisdom and calmness are the only weapons for survival in wealthy families. Only by mastering the overall situation can we not be contained. Chapter 49. Late at night, Lin Yunxia was walking in the courtyard, and the crystal ball flickered, prompting someone in the mansion to try to sneak into the underground secret room. She followed the light and found a masked relative quietly moving. Lin Yunxia calmed down, holding the crystal ball in his hand, and the shimmering light formed a protective field, making the opponent unable to act. She stepped forward, her tone soft but coercive, if you have a bad heart, even if you get close, you won't be able to touch the true secret. The other party retreated in fright, unable to resist. The side husband whispered admiration, Miss, you have mastered the whole situation. Lin Yunxia smiled, his eyes shining with wisdom. In this wealthy world, only calmness and wisdom can truly control fate. Chapter 50. Finally, Lin Yunxia used wisdom, goodwill, and the intelligence he had mastered by the crystal ball to resolve all the conspiracies within the Liu family. Relatives who were once hostile to her are also melted or balanced by her strategy and gentleness. At night, Lin Yunxia stood in the center of the courtyard, the moonlight reflecting her resolute face. The side husband whispered, Miss. It really worked. Lin Yunxia smiled, holding the crystal ball in his hand, and secretly told himself, from now on, she will use wisdom, kindness, and calmness to walk out of her own path. No matter how sinister the wealthy family is, she is fearless. Under the moonlight, her shadow stretched out, like the most resolute existence in the wealthy world. Although the situation is dangerous, she has truly taken control of her own destiny. Extra Chapter 1, The Secret of the Civet. Lin Yunxia was walking in the garden in the morning, and the civet cat jumped lightly on her shoulder, her eyes flashing with a strange light. The civet seemed to want to guide her somewhere, and she smiled as she followed it through the path in the back garden of the mansion. In the depths of the garden, there was a strange blue spirit grass that emitted a faint light. The civet crouched down, gently touched the grass with its paws, and instantly a miniature illusion appeared in the center of the grass, showing a hidden corner of the underground secret room that had not yet been discovered. Lin Yunxia squatted down, holding the crystal ball in his hand, observing the illusion. It turns out that civets are not just pets, they can also sense energy. The side husband whispered beside him, Miss, every step you take, even the little creatures are helping you. Lin Yunxia smiled slightly, stretched out his hand to pick the spiritual grass, and carefully preserved it. This spiritual grass can increase the spiritual power of the crystal ball, and she secretly vowed in her heart that she would be calmer and wiser than ever in the challenges of the future. underscore 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 un. Extra Chapter 2, Unexpected Guest. One day, there was a sudden knock on the door of the mansion. Lin Yunju opened the door and found a young man wearing a grey cloak with surprise and anticipation in his eyes. Miss, I'm here to ask you for advice. The young man said in a low voice. Lin Yunju raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, how could this person know about my existence? She beckoned the young man into the house and asked about his intentions. The young man took out a small crystal from his cloak and said tremblingly, this is a spiritual object I found in my practice, but I can't control it. I heard that you can sense the power of spiritual objects. Lin Yunju held the crystal ball, and the shimmering light illuminated the room. Sure enough, there was strong energy in the small crystal, but the young man's mind was still shallow and uncontrollable. She said softly, you have to learn the state of mind and wisdom in order to master power. The young man nodded, his eyes flashing with perseverance. Lin Yunju smiled in his heart, even strangers can change their destiny because of wisdom and kindness. Underscore 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 un. Extra Chapter 3, Moonlit Night Trial. Late at night, Lin Yunju came to the top floor of the mansion alone, and the crystal ball flickered in the palm of his hand. As the moonlight fell, she felt an unfamiliar energy that seemed to challenge her state of mind and wisdom. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the energy flow. The breeze blew, bringing a strange aura, as if the moonlight was also staring at her. The crystal ball gradually intensifies, and countless trials appear in the vision, choose trust or doubt, gentle and kind, or cold calculations. Each choice influences the transformation of illusions, mirroring her inner world. Lin Yunju smiled slightly and stabilized his mood. Under the moonlight, she felt the increase in strength and understood in her heart that true strength comes not only from strength, but also from mastering the state of mind and wisdom. The side husband stood quietly aside and whispered, Miss, your trial. It succeeded again. Lin Yunju smiled, his eyes shining, in this world, whether it is a wealthy family, an adventure, or a trial, as long as your mind and wisdom coexist, you can control your own destiny.